everyone. A very good evening to you. Welcome to Misano. We're about to go racing with race 2 for the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli cars that are making their way to the grid right now. The mix of pro and AM drivers here at the round 4 of the Ferrari Challenge for 2018. From here we go off to Brno in the Czech Republic, then Barcelona in Spain, and of course the glittering Finale Mondiale to come in Monza at the beginning of November. All the information at races.ferrari.com. There we can see our pole-sitting car to the left of your picture. It's Bjorn Grossman in car number 84, driving for the Octane 126 team. Here is the circuit location. It is Misano on the Adriatic coast here in Italy. And a beautiful location as the sun begins to drop after what has been a gorgeous day today, and it hasn't been like that on every day here. 4.2 kilometers, some 16 turns, 6 of them left-handers, 10 of them right-handers, and the circuit here from the early 70s, and a place that's very special indeed. The Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. And the weather, as you can see, the air temperature is still a really glorious 28 degrees. Track temperature is just 1 degree below that at 27. And there are the spectators ready to enjoy the first of the 2 races to come this evening. This one just as the sun drops, and then a race for the Copa Shell drivers that will be in the dark. Hublot safety car ready to lead the cars away then for this second race for the Trofeo Pirelli drivers. Yesterday, the race was won in a very convincing style, it has to be said, by Niklas Nilsson. And Niklas Nilsson took P1. It was David Fuminelli that took P2 and Bjorn Grossman P3. So, final conversations going on with Bjorn Grossman and the team principal of Octane 126, Mr. Christian Berchinger, alongside. And as I mentioned then, a mix of pro and AM drivers in the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli, all driving the same car, this 488 Challenge car, turbocharged, and absolutely wonderful car to drive. All the drivers love the car, it's very forgiving. And here is Niklas Nilsson then, who's just beaten to pole position by Bjorn Grossman. And it was a tough battle in the qualifying session, which Niklas Nilsson in the end had to yield that P1 position to Bjorn Grossman. And Niklas Nilsson in the race yesterday, because Bjorn Grossman and David Fuminelli were fighting so hard over the P2 place, he was able to get up the road, and get up the road he did. Niklas Nilsson in a very convincing fashion, finishing some 6.9 seconds ahead of Bjorn Grossman and David Fuminelli, who took P2 and P3. David Fuminelli P2, Bjorn Grossman P3. And there is the David Fuminelli car then. Having a conversation with him maybe about 30 minutes or so ago. Hugely experienced racer, and we're hoping to make his way up the order from P4 on the grid. Johnny Lawson, who has made his return into the Ferrari Challenge here, having won the Copa Shell class last year. He is elevated into Trofeo Pirelli Pro, and he is going from P3 on the grid. His stablemate of Niklas Nilsson, it has to be said. They're both racing for the Formula Racing team. So, number of spectators here to enjoy the race action as the sun begins to descend. It's a fantastic location for a racing circuit, and literally the beach is but a few moments away from here. So a little postcard of our venue and the location then, as the buzzer sounds down there on the grid, and the grid will gradually be cleared to allow the cars to go off on their formation lap for this 30-minute race. As always, a rolling start in the Ferrari Challenge, which sees Bjorn Grossman, Niklas Nilsson going from P1 and P2. So there you can see the Pirelli tyres then that are taking the red colour band. this weekend. Different colour band around the tyres for every single round of the Ferrari Challenge this year. And Andrea Bertolini, who is the official Ferrari GT driver, is here this weekend and is playing his part not only here meeting the spectators but also in race control.
From this year, all the Competizione GT factory drivers are involved, like race control advisor during the Ferrari Challenge weekend. This time is my turn. I'm really happy to do it. Here in Misano it will be a different weekend from a driver's side because we have race 1 on the sunset race and the second one, race 2, on the night race. It will be really exciting because, and also different because you will drive in the dark, and from the driver's side always is something really amazing. It will be an interesting challenge for our Ferrari Challenge driver here to drive in the night. Here in Misano we have a really fast sector where you have to, especially in the dark, you have to change your reference time and to be focused where you can brake, because also the gap in terms of temperature between the sunset race and night race, it will be less temperature, the car it will be a bit faster, and then yeah, it will be really exciting for us. Also, Competizione GT driver, we like a lot to drive in the dark, and I hope it will be the same for our 488 Challenge driver. And now enjoy the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli and Coppa Shell, sunset race, night race here from Misano, and always Forza Ferrari. Ciao.
Great to hear from Andrea Bertolini, and as he indicated, this year in the Ferrari Challenge, for every single round, one of the official Ferrari GT drivers is in the race control to offer their opinion on some of the decisions that are made, and a very good addition it has been as well, because drivers do take notice out of a driver who of course is respected, and they see it from a driver's eye perspective as well as a race control perspective as well. So very good that one of the Ferrari GT drivers is in race control for every single round of the Ferrari Challenge this year, and we are in the middle of the season here at the Misano circuit. So as the jingle indicates, we're not far away from the Trofeo Pirelli Race 2 getting underway. The Hublot safety car will be away on the formation lap, and will then, the cars will be released, and they will head up towards finding the safety car, grid up behind the safety car. Safety car will peel off into the pit lane, and then the race will be on. We're just 1 minute away from the formation lap getting underway. Here is the starting grid in full for you. Pro drivers, Björn Grossman, Niklas Nilsson on the front row, with Johnny Lawson and David Fumanelli row 2. Then it's Fabian Volvend ahead of Chris Froggatt, Jens Liebhauser, Thomas O'Rourke. Then we find Alessandro Vezzoni, Christian Overgaard, Martin Nelson, John Dillon, and John Sawbridge will bring up the rear of the grid on that P13 place. So the mix of pro and AM drivers, the best of the pro drivers, of course, Björn Grossman from pole position. Pole position effectively for the AM drivers, although it's P5 on the grid, is Fabian Volvend, who had a fantastic victory for the AM class yesterday. So Fabian Volvend must be pleased with pole position.
Hi, my name is Fabienne Volvend. I'm driving for the Team Octane 126, and I'm looking forward to start from pole position for tonight's sunset race.
So the sunset race, as it was romantically called by Andrea Bertolini and also Fabian Volvend, the formation lap for said race is underway now as the drivers weave from side to side to try and get some temperature into the brakes and into the tyres. I think turn 2 is going to be very, very interesting indeed. We saw a fantastic move by Chris Froggatt, the AM driver, around the outside of turn 1 during last night's dark race, getting past Tommaso Roca, as all the social media are at the top of the screen for you. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if Niklas Nilsson tries to do exactly the same, because he's going from P2 on the grid. If he can hang it around the outside of turn number 1 and get alongside Bjorn Grossman, that will give him the inside for turn number 2. So going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds. So all the cars then, as we go on board with Alessandro Vezzoni, the Rosso Corsa Pelin racer. And Alessandro Vezzoni going from P9 on the grid, 6th fastest of the pro drivers, and looking back from the Johnny Lawson car, the Formula Racing returnee Johnny Lawson. And there, as you can see, the cars do catch up with the safety car, the Hublot safety car, which is driven by former Ferrari Challenge champion Beppe Scanetti. And the cars will all grid up side by side behind the safety car. Bjorn Grossman really keen and eager to get going, of course. Did a great job in qualifying, putting the car on pole position. It was a very good qualifying session earlier on this afternoon. And it's Grossman, Nilsson, Lawson and Fuminelli, the 4 fastest drivers out there on track. And, of course, they occupy the first 2 rows. One to keep an eye on is going to be Chris Froggatt, who's going from P6 on the grid. The pace that he showed yesterday was very good indeed, as he made his way up the grid from being plumb last. So this great shot from the back of the Hublot safety car, which will pull into the pit lane, and then it will be the responsibility of Bjorn Grossman and Niklas Nilsson side by side to control the pace of the rolling lap. And the music will build the excitement for race number 2 for the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli this weekend in Misano. Well, as we go, it looked like David Fuminelli got the jump on everybody because he has put his car P1. I reckon Race Control will take a look at that. There's Bjorn Grossman and Johnny Lawson, and Chris Froggatt is also making a move. So too is Tommaso Roca. That wasn't a particularly good start, I have to say. And here's Martin Nilsson battling with Alessandro Vezzoni. So David Fuminelli is in the lead of the race, but I have to say I've seen some advanced starts in my time, and I think that was one of them. But for the moment, Martin Nelson's out, damage to the rear of the car. That will be the end of the Martin Nilsson race. Now, he was battling, I think, with Tommaso Roca. So here comes Bjorn Grossman then trying to fight back. He's now ahead of Niklas Nilsson, who was in P2. So Bjorn Grossman is now P2. Niklas Nilsson is P3. David Fuminelli is leading the race, and the safety car has been called for. And I'm not surprised by that, because so is John Dillon is damaged as well in car number 61. So that's the end of the John Dillon race. So 2 cars out at the start of this. We've seen the Martin Nilsson car stricken, and also that car of John Dillon. So Martin Nilsson then with damage to the rear of the car and damage to the... It looks like Martin Nilsson's car is on fire, actually. We can just see through the wheel arch a flame beginning to flicker there. Chris Froggatt P5 ahead of Volvend, P1 in the AMS. So good move by Chris Froggatt right at the start of the race. There's John Dillon. Thankfully, he's out of the car, all okay. I mean, the integral safety of these 488 Challenge cars is fantastic. Discussions going on with the Octane 126 team. I have to say, that start was ragged. And there you can see the flames beginning to flicker underneath the Martin Nilsson car, who gives the marshals the hurry up. Come on, it's on fire. Let's take a look at this, because Fuminelli from the 2nd row of the grid. Now, you can see the line. Well, they were 4 abreast as they got towards the line. Johnny Lawson was in that mix as well, and David Fuminelli just got all of them. Well, I have to say, I think Race Control will be looking at that, because look at this. I mean, Niklas Nilsson, Bjorn Grossman, absolutely perfect. And then David Fuminelli and Chris Froggatt as well. So this was John Dillon into the back end of the Martin Nilsson car, I think. Well, the incident involving cars 13 and 61 is under investigation. I'm expecting to see a message to say that the start is under investigation as well. There's confirmation of the incident involving cars number 13 and number 61 under investigation. Well, we will see if we get any further messages. But what stewards usually do in this situation is to wait for the safety car to come in and then announce any penalties or investigations, perhaps. So, fair point. So the order on track at the moment is David Fuminelli, Björn Grossman, Niklas Nilsson, Johnny Lawson. As is always the case when the safety car is out, the clock continues to tick down. This is part of the race. The start now is under investigation. I'm hardly surprised by that, truthfully. And I wouldn't be altogether surprised if David Fuminelli didn't get a drive-through penalty. We will see. Don't want to jump the gun, as it were. Certainly looked like he did, in my opinion. But we will see. On board with Alessandro Vezzoni, who is P5 in the Pro class. Ahead of him is the car of Fabian Volvend. Chris Froggatt, the AM driver then, who's leading the AM race. He got ahead of Fabian Volvend in that opening melee, and I have to say Chris Froggatt was hard on the start as well. Whether that will be looked at. Bear in mind, Andrea Bertolini is in race control as we speak. Let's try and pick the bones out of this, if you will. Look, the lights now go green. In fairness, the lights have gone. So whether the argument will be that David Fuminelli just really anticipated the start because the lights had gone out, but it's the interpretation of exactly where the race starts. And so there is John Dillon. Safety car remains out. Martin Nilsson walking away from his car. I think he might have just had a conversation with John Dillon. I'm not sure. Now let's see from being on board with Alessandro Vezzoni here. He's got Jens Liebhauser right in front of him. Thomas O'Rourke is alongside him. So Vezzoni denied then the opportunity to get past Jens Liebhauser. So to the outside of Alessandro Vezzoni is Martin Nilsson. And then we didn't really see the Dillon and Martin Nilsson incident unfold from that particular onboard shot. So the spectators here are perhaps not enjoying the race action as much as they would if the safety car wasn't out, but of course the safety car will remain out until those cars of John Dillon and Martin Nilsson are recovered. So Nilsson only making his return to racing this weekend. So inside the Ferrari Challenge, enjoy this to music for just a few moments. Just been given the notification that the safety car is coming in this lap, so we will go back to racing at the end of this lap. Our interpretation is that even though the lights have gone out, you can't overtake until you've crossed the line. But we will see. So Björn Grossman now, come what may, will be after David Fuminelli. That's for sure. And Niklas Nilsson will be after Björn Grossman. So the safety car has come in then, and let's go racing once again. David Fuminelli then around turn number 16. And the top four drivers leaving Chris Froggatt for dust as they start this. And look how close Björn Grossman is to David Fuminelli. So Chris Froggatt ahead of Fabian Volvend, as you can see. Alessandro Vezzoni chases them. Niklas Nilsson will be on a charge as well in car number 9 here. And Björn Grossman is hunting and being hunted at the same time. So Chris Froggatt is the best of the AM drivers there in the white number 93 car. But the race is being led by David Fuminelli, who of course has got a completely clear track ahead of him. But he's being chased down by Björn Grossman, Niklas Nilsson, then it's Johnny Lawson. The two Formula Racing cars in P3 and P4. So Fuminelli runs right at that turn, and Björn Grossman gets all out of shape and runs very wide. That will have cost him a couple of tenths, and sure enough, that allows Fuminelli to put a little bit more of a margin between himself and the P2 driver, and allows Niklas Nilsson to get just a little bit closer to him. So the fight on at the front here, but at the moment David Fuminelli has got everything seemingly very well under control. And I'll tell you what, Fabian Volvend is looking very lively against Chris Froggatt here. She could be wrestling that place back from Chris Froggatt any moment now. Certainly having a real go at the British driver in car number 93, but Fuminelli once again is reeled in by Björn Grossman, who goes through this left-hander now. We had a fantastic onboard lap with Alessandro Vezzoni over earlier in the weekend around that turn 14-15 sequence. Very, very exciting indeed. So here comes Björn Grossman. Nothing like at the moment close enough to David Fuminelli to be able to make a charge. So they turn into the right-hander, which is turn number 1. Then turn number 2 is the left-hander. And Fabian Volvend and Alessandro Vezzoni have got past Chris Froggatt. So Chris Froggatt, the AM driver who'd got ahead of Fabian Volvend, has been overtaken by both Fabian Volvend, who's wrestled that place back for the lead of the AMs, and also Alessandro Vezzoni has got by Chris Froggatt as well. Drive-through penalty for car number 2, David Fuminelli. I have to say, I am really not surprised by that. Chris Froggatt has obviously got problems. Look, he's dropping down the order. You can see, I think, some smoke coming off the back of the car. Now, whether he has been touched there and the bodywork is rubbing on the tyre. Yeah, you can see that there's been contact there. So, unfortunately, that is going to probably spell the end for Chris Froggatt's race, I would suggest. And that's why he's dropping down the order. Fabian Volvend has been able to get past. So, there with the Octane 126 team. Jump start considered for David Fuminelli, the Rosso Corsa racer. So Björn Grossman can relax a little bit now because whilst he's P2 on the track, he is actually going to be leading the race. That is assuming Niklas Nilsson doesn't get by him. So David Fuminelli has got 3 laps within which to take this drive-through penalty. 3 laps once it's been awarded, and I have to say, I am really not surprised. Fuminelli chooses not to dive into the pit lane on this occasion. What Björn Grossman needs to do now is open up as much of a gap as he can between himself and Niklas Nilsson. At the moment, the order then is Fuminelli leading, but that's nominal because he's got a drive-through penalty. So in real terms, it's Grossman, Nilsson, Johnny Lawson, and then it's Fabian Volvend, the best of the AMs, who is P4 in the race overall. So there the standings in the AMs. It's Volvend, Froggatt and Roker, although after saying that, yeah, Froggatt is still running. Sure enough, there is the number 93 car. Whether that bit of bodywork that was rubbing against the tyre has become dislodged now. He's got Tommaso Roca for company and then John Sawbridge. And Sawbridge has made up 3 or 4 places. Of course, we have lost, in fairness, Martin Nelson and John Dillon. Incident involving cars number 81 and number 93 is under investigation. So obviously Chris Froggatt received a touch from Fabian Volvend, which is potentially what caused the damage to Chris Froggatt's car. Hopefully we will see that in replay as Tommaso Roca is trying to get past Chris Froggatt. Now, ironically, it's these two that provided the overtake of the race yesterday, as Chris Froggatt got past Tommaso Roca in the all-blue car, and now Tommaso Roca is trying to find his way past Chris Froggatt now, the ailing Chris Froggatt car, which is not delivering the same pace as it did prior to the bodywork rearrangement. We can only assume came from Fabian Volvend. So Froggatt doing his level best to drive the pants off the thing and keep Tommaso Roca at bay. And at the moment, doing the best to make the car as wide as possible to protect his P2 position in the AM classification currently. Fuminelli stays out, so he'll have this lap and one more before he has to come in. Otherwise, he would be disqualified. He would get the black flag. So often what happens in this situation, and I have to say generally it's futile, is that the team may be making a protest and trying to appeal the decision. But generally, in fact, I can't think of one occasion when it has worked. So Fuminelli on track is leading the race, but actually isn't, because he's got a drive-through penalty to serve. So what this is doing is actually slowing Björn Grossman down, because Grossman really needs to get up the road from Niklas Nilsson, who's getting closer to Björn Grossman now. Those two are leaving Johnny Lawson a little bit, who is running in P3 at the moment. Leading the AMS is Fabian Volvend. And you can see Niklas Nilsson now is beginning to reel in Björn Grossman. So top speed from David Fuminelli is 216 kilometers per hour. It'll be 60 kilometers per hour in just a moment when he dives into the pit lane. So Grossman all over the back of the number 2 car. Now Grossman will have been made aware of the fact that Fuminelli has got a drive-through penalty, which is why he's not trying too hard to overtake him. Fuminelli comes in now. So now we go to the real race lead, which is with Björn Grossman. All of a sudden, you watch Niklas Nilsson get the hurry up now, because Niklas Nilsson needs to stay within fighting chance of Björn Grossman. The fights between these two have been fantastic during the season, Niklas Nilsson and Björn Grossman. David Fuminelli then down the pit lane to take his drive-through penalty. And the number 9 car of Niklas Nilsson. Björn Grossman has got really, really good pace. And last time around, I mean, Grossman and Nilsson were virtually on the same lap time. Johnny Lawson desperately trying to keep up with them as well. He was quite a few tenths slower, to be fair. So where is David Fuminelli going to come back out? Ahead of... he's going to be right at the back of the pack now. Halfway point of the race already, as the clock ticks down to just under 15 minutes. So the safety car, of course, punctuating the race duration, if you like. Which, if anything, means that it's good for the tyres, because they've not been pushed as hard. And Björn Grossman for Octane 126 is leader in Trofeo Pirelli Pro, and is at the moment setting purple sectors in Sector 1 and Sector 2 on his way to what could be the fastest lap of the race so far. The fastest lap of the race currently sits with David Fuminelli at a 1:38.424, which was on lap 4 of the race, but it could be bettered now by Björn Grossman. So Fabian Volvend is being chased by Alessandro Vezzoni. They're in different classes, because Fabian Volvend races in the AM class, Alessandro Vezzoni in the Pro class. And there is Alessandro Vezzoni crossing the timing line just about now, on board with him. And sure enough, Grossman does set a new fastest lap, a 1:38.026. 3 sectors, all better than anyone out there. And of course, with that David Fuminelli car sort of out of his way, he is quicker than Niklas Nilsson by 8 tenths, according to the last completed lap. So we stay on board with Alessandro Vezzoni, who, like earlier on, gave us a fantastic onboard lap around this 4.2 kilometer Misano World Circuit. Bear in mind, we've lost Martin Nelson and John Dillon. Here comes Christian Overgaard, trying to find his way past the number 39 driver, and he does so because John Sawbridge runs wide and Christian Overgaard comes through. So P4 and P5 in the AMS. It's now Christian Overgaard leading John Sawbridge. So next in the target sights of Christian Overgaard is going to be the car of Thomas O'Rourke. Grossman leading by some 2 seconds over Niklas Nilsson. It's a very healthy margin that he has. And Johnny Lawson is a couple of seconds, well, 2.2 seconds behind the second place driver, Niklas Nilsson. So there was the mistake from John Sawbridge. Ran wide. Christian Overgaard said, "Tar very much, I'm coming through." He had been putting him under some pressure, it has to be said. There is the race leader in the pros, Björn Grossman, the German driver for Octane 126. And he's doing exactly what Niklas Nilsson did to him yesterday in terms of really opening up the margins between the two of them and getting up the road. In fact, he did it to David Fuminelli, didn't he? But even so, he's doing exactly what he needs to do, and that's putting some breathing space between himself and the P2 driver. And there you can see they're all gapped, the 1, 2, 3 at the moment, fairly evenly. Two Formula Racing cars running in P2 and P3. Octane 126 leading the race. 1:38.026, as you can see, is confirmation of the fastest lap that came on lap 8 of the race from Björn Grossman. So a warning flag is being given to Fabian Volvend in car number 81. Presumably that would be for the push on Chris Froggatt. Now, warning flag is just that. It is only a warning flag, and there is no penalty attached to that. But of course, what it does do, it means that any further indiscretion by Fabian Volvend, she would be likely to pick up a penalty. So around turn 16 comes Björn Grossman. Now, it was here that he set up the run to the start-finish line, crosses the timing line, and runs into turn number 1, which is the right-hander, then a quick blast of the throttle before you're on to the next turn, turn number 2, which is a left-hander. There is Fabian Volvend, and being chased by Alessandro Vezzoni. So, lady racer Fabian Volvend in car number 81. This would be, if it stays this way, it would be the 3rd win in a row for Fabian Volvend in the AM class. So the number 81 car, also engineered by Octane 126. And currently, if everything stays the way it is, Octane 126 will be in line for a complete clean sweep. 2 pole positions, 2 wins, and fastest lap. Christian Berchinger will be buying us a glass of cola later, I should think. He'll be very happy. He is the team principal of Octane 126. So cars 60 and 44 are being warned about exceeding track limits at turns 1 and 2. That's Johnny Lawson and Jens Liebhauser, both pro drivers now. And there is the number 60 car of Johnny Lawson. For Formula Racing, good to see him back racing, and only reason he's missed racing is he's been looking after his son Conrad in his kart racing career, who's another very, very strong driving talent coming through the ranks. I think Johnny told me he's 12 years of age, and he's going to be a name to look out for in the future, I'm sure. So that number 60 car, Björn Grossman just stretching his legs because he's consistently lapping quicker than Niklas Nilsson, and he's now just under 4 seconds ahead of Niklas Nilsson. Here you can see Thomas O'Rourke and Christian Overgaard having a real battle for P3 and P4 in the AMS. Final podium place. Christian Overgaard would love to go away from Misano with a podium, and we know from how Thomas O'Rourke was pressured by Chris Froggatt yesterday that he's very, very good at defending. So Christian Overgaard is going to have to try and find a way past the all-blue machine, and he dives to the inside now, and he's done it. Well done, Christian Overgaard. A good overtake, but now trying to get the undercut and get underneath, and the switchback, if you like, is Thomas O'Rourke. He's on the outside of Christian Overgaard, but Christian has got the momentum to go through. So Christian Overgaard then in car number 45. I think I'm right in saying this would be Christian Overgaard's first podium this season, if he manages to hold on to this. Thomas O'Rourke is coming back at him. We've got 7.5 minutes of the race remaining. The race seems to have gone really, really quickly, but we had, of course, that period behind the safety car. And now Thomas O'Rourke looks a bit ragged, and that means that Christian Overgaard can breathe a sigh of relief as he's getting up the road now from Tommaso Rocca in car number 97, the Rosso Corsa Racer. Baron Motorsport engineer the car of Christian Overgaard. And behind the battle between Tommaso Rocca and Christian Overgaard that we were watching is the David Fuminelli car. Now, bear in mind, David Fuminelli has had to have a drive-through penalty, so he's done his drive-through penalty and now is troubling Tommaso Rocca, which will be for P9 in the race overall, should he be able to find his way past the Tommaso Rocca car. And with the pace that David Fuminelli has got, you wouldn't bet against that, would you? Björn Grossman, we were having this discussion earlier on, and you look at Björn Grossman's racing style. He's the sort of driver that can just deliver lap after lap after lap. His consistency is supreme. And that's exactly what he needs now, because he's ahead of Niklas Nilsson by 4.6 seconds. I mean, last time around, he was very nearly 5/10 quicker than Niklas Nilsson, so doing a very good job indeed. The spectators look on then at the sunset race, and the Octane 126 team, including Björn Grossman's partner, look on. And here indeed is the race leader, breaking the beam now across the track with 5 3/4 minutes left to run in this Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli race. There is the car of Johnny Lawson. This is Fabian Volvend being chased by Alessandro Vezzoni in the number 27 car. Alessandro Vezzoni with that strip of LEDs on the car that was so visible in the darkness last night, because the Trofeo Pirelli drivers raced in the full darkness under the floodlights. It will be the turn of the Coppichelle drivers to do that tonight. And once again, we go on board with Alessandro Vezzoni. You can see the LED display on the left-hand side of your screen, then into 6th gear, down from 5th, then 4th. Takes over the rumble strips, and here comes David Fuminelli on Tommaso Rocca. It was going to be a question of when, not if, that David Fuminelli found his way past the Rosso Corsa Racer. Christian Overgaard sufficiently far up the road, and of course David Fuminelli can get on the back of Christian Overgaard and get past him. It won't matter because they're running in different classes. But I'll tell you what, Christian Overgaard is getting oh so much closer to Chris Froggatt here. So, you know, his first podium position, which would be a P3 at the moment, the way it stands for Christian Overgaard, if he can find his way past Chris Froggatt, he would get P2. I think Fabian Volvend is out of touch, even with, particularly given that there's only 4 minutes of the race remaining. So there's race leader overall, Björn Grossman, P1. Here is P2, Niklas Nilsson, the race winner yesterday. And in P3 is Johnny Lawson. Johnny Lawson will be very pleased to get a podium on his return to racing. He was just off the podium, finishing P4 in the race yesterday. But his young whippersnapper teammate Niklas Nilsson is ahead of him, and Johnny Lawson then in that number 60 car running in P3. So Grossman, Nilsson, Lawson, the 1, 2, 3. Fabian Volvend then is the AM driver leading the AM class. So Froggatt to Overgaard, the gap is 1.5 seconds. We've got 3.5 minutes left, which means 2 racing laps. Incident involving cars number 61 and 13, which was the race-ending incident for Martin Nelson and also for John Dillon, is going to be investigated after the race. Damage is done, of course. They're both out of the race now. There we can see Laurent Demuse, just all you could, to the back of the picture as the FF Corsa team are looking on. Of course, their best driver out there at the moment is Chris Froggatt, who at the moment is P2 in the AMS. There is Fabian Volvend, who's leading the AMS. Then it's Alessandro Vezzoni, and Christian Overgaard is taking a couple of tenths out of the gap between himself and Chris Froggatt. I think it's all going to be a little bit too late. Not sure that, beg your pardon, he's taken another 3 tenths out of it. He's going to have to go some, because we've only got 2.5 minutes left. And the thing is, it's all very well as being as quick or quicker than someone. You've got to find your way past them as well. Fabian Volven crosses the timing line, so too Alessandro Vezzoni. So it'd be nice to take a look at this battle that's going on. Jens Liebhauser, he's closing in on Alessandro Vezzoni, but the real battle is for that P2 in the AMS between Christian Overgaard and Chris Froggatt. Because Froggatt has taken another, Overgaard has taken another couple of tenths out of Chris Froggatt. So hopefully we'll pick that battle up. It's the battle for P2 and P3 in the AM class between Chris Froggatt and Christian Overgaard. Jens Liebhauser is flashing his lights furiously, trying to get past Alessandro Vezzoni. He's not quite close enough, and again, Christian Overgaard has taken another couple of tenths out of Chris Froggatt's margin. So the fight is going to be on for P2 in the AMS, but you're watching the fight between Jens Liebhauser and Alessandro Vezzoni, which is a fight in the pro class, and it's a fight for P4 and P5 in the pros. At the moment, Fabian Volvend is up the road. She's in the AM class. So here we've got a minute and a quarter left on the clock, and Jens Liebhauser, for my money, is not close enough to Alessandro Vezzoni to make a really true effort in terms of trying to get past him. However, the Froggatt Overgaard situation is one that we're going to pick up hopefully now as the camera zooms in to what will be those two cars. Here they come then. Oh, and Chris Froggatt really getting out of shape, and that's lending itself to Christian Overgaard, and almost it's too inviting. I just wonder whether, following that contact and the bodywork rubbing on that car, whether the tyre is slowly deflating, and Chris is on the final lap trying to nurse this car around. Christian Overgaard, of course, his car is running perfectly, the Baron Motorsport engineered car. Chris Froggatt is driving the pants off this thing to keep it going. And Christian Overgaard is within sight of taking P2. But, as I said, it's all very well getting onto the back of someone. It's getting past. And Chris Froggatt, you can see him. The car is really, really mishandling. We're going to have to cross, of course, back to this car, which is the race-leading Björn Grossman, as he's heading towards the checkered flag. And he has driven once again another faultless race, really. Never thought in question was the actual race lead, because from what we could see, David Fuminelli, it seemed to be an obvious jump start, and therefore the penalty would always be awarded. Whoa! As Björn Grossman gets very sideways. Look at that. He's kicking the back end of the car out. He's enjoying this, and he is going to enjoy the fact that the checkered flag is being unfurled for him, and he will take the win here at the Misano circuit. Heading towards that checkered flag, Björn Grossman wins. And Niklas Nilsson takes P2. Then it will be Johnny Lawson that should take P3. Jens Liebhauser has got past Alessandro Vezzoni. Fabian Volvend wins in the AMS. Now, did Christian Overgaard manage to get past Chris Froggatt? No, is the answer. That's a brilliant drive from Chris Froggatt to hold on to that car ahead of Christian Overgaard. And David Fuminelli finishing the race P9, but of course it'll actually be P6 in the pros. So another awesome drive from the British driver Chris Froggatt then, who just held on to that car. Cars number 2, 39 and 60 are told to go straight to the scrutineering garage. So race done and dusted then. Race punctuated by a safety car following that incident between Martin Nilsson and John Dillon. Right in the early stages of the race, and it was a particularly ragged start from the Trofeo Pirelli drivers. And we're on board with Alessandro Vezzoni then, who just got overtook by Jens Liebhauser in the final knock-ins of the race. So the spectators look on, the podium to come, of course. And the Trofeo Pirelli Sunset race is done. And confirmation then of the top 3 in each category. In the pros, it's Björn Grossman, Niklas Nilsson, Johnny Lawson. In the AMS, Fabian Volvend, Chris Froggatt, and Christian Overgaard taking his first podium of the season. So this was Jens Liebhauser getting to the inside, which would become the outside. But Alessandro Vezzoni just carrying a little bit too much speed. Yeah, lost the back end of the car. So that was pressure being put on by Jens Liebhauser, but good recovery from Alessandro Vezzoni to get it pointing in the right direction as quickly as possible. So plenty to talk about in that race for good and bad. And Ferrari challenge then, and Björn Grossman congratulated by team boss Christian Berchinger down there, having done a very good job in the number 84 car. P2 goes the way of Niklas Nilsson, who has not been off the podium in his entire Ferrari Challenge racing season. P3 will go to Johnny Lawson. So he does get a podium on his return to Ferrari Challenge Racing, which is good. And jumping out of the car is Johnny Lawson and is congratulated. And Fabian Volvend is out of the car as well. It's another AM win for Fabian. Christian Overgaard being congratulated too. And there is Niklas Nielsen. Doesn't look very happy, does he? Well, he did smile eventually. Let's take a look at the highlights of the race now. Well, for our money, with 4 abreast, it always looked like a jump start, and David Fuminelli getting the best start of everybody. Björn Grossman, Niklas Nielsen, and Johnny Lawson were 3 abreast, and there was a touch, and I never saw that between Johnny Lawson and Björn Grossman. Jens Liebhauser was right in the thick of it. So too was Martin Nilsson, having been pushed into the thick of it, arguably by John Dillon. That's certainly how the race stewards saw it. So that brought out the safety car for a couple of laps. Unfortunately, Chris Froggatt would be on the receiving end of some damage, potentially from the Fabian Volvend car, and that slowed him. John Sawbridge made a mistake. That allowed Christian Overgaard through, and Christian Overgaard was going to be on a bit of a charge then, heading towards the first podium of his season. Alessandro Vezzoni and Jens Liebhauser were fighting, but at the checkered flag, it would be Björn Grossman that would take the win for the pro drivers. So Octane 126 the team, and Fabian Volvend would take the win in the AMS, also for Octane 126. So an all-round good result for Octane 126. 2 poles, 2 wins, 2 fastest laps, and Formula Racing second and third in pro, and third was this man, Johnny Lawson, as he jumped out of the car to be congratulated. So as the sun sets then in the pros, confirmation of the classification: Grossman, Nielsen, Lawson. Then it was Liebhauser, Vezzoni, and David Fuminelli. Floodlights will be sparked into life about now, ready for the night race to come for the Copa-Shell drivers. Now, under pressure from Jens Liebhauser was Alessandro Vezzoni, who got the car out of shape, but it was a very good reaction from Alessandro Vezzoni. Okay, he lost a place to Jens Liebhauser, but was able to get it pointing in the right direction and getting up the road, and sadly it was a place lost, but we will be going up to the podium next. 2 podiums to come, 1 for the pro drivers and 1 for the AMS. So there, the podium being readied. We mustn't forget that Grossman had to overtake Nilsson. And there, the podium being readied. Their confirmation in the Drivers' Championship, 155 points to Niklas Nilsson, 136 points to Bjorn Grossman. Those two are still very much in the game, aren't they? It's not all over. Which is good for us as we head to the next round. Next racing we'll see from the Trofeo Pirelli Pro Drivers will be at the Buno circuit, which is the next round of the Ferrari Challenge. Here comes Johnny Lawson then, celebrating his return to racing with a podium. He was just off the podium yesterday. Niklas Nilsson, a Formula Racing stablemate. The race winner, though, is the German driver Bjorn Grossman. Teams represented, and national anthem plays out. Trophy presentation time then, and Johnny Lawson receives his trophy from Stefano Giannini, the mayor of Misano Adriatico. Niklas Nilsson receives his, and of course the race-winning trophy goes the way of Bjorn Grossman. Teams to receive the trophy as well, Octane 126. And then the Pirelli trophy to be presented as well. Stephen Rowe, the Pirelli Tyre Development Manager, making that trophy presentation. So Michele Mambelli then encouraging everyone onto the top step of the podium for the photos. And here comes Grossman, who's going to make sure the engineer gets it. And Johnny Lawson, if I may say so, sir, you're a bit slow on the uptake with the champers. Oh, Bjorn. Well done. One poor Pirelli trophy girl has been... I wouldn't have been altogether surprised if she didn't clunk him around the edge with the trophy then, but she didn't. Here come the 3-2-1 in the pros. Johnny Lawson, P3. P2 goes the way of Niklas Nilsson. Gosh, you can imagine it, can't you? Niklas Nilsson taking P2, but taking the top spot was the Octane 126 driver, Bjorn Grossman then, who was invincible today. Well done, Bjorn Grossman. Well, even with his eyes closed, he's not a bad, not a mean shot with the champagne. There'll be a big, big cheer for Christian Overgaard in the AM podium, taking P3. Another one of the big, big characters, Chris Froggatt, did so well to hold on to that P2 place. And 2 out of 2 for Fabian Volvend. You can see how tall Chris Froggatt is. Look at that. Fabian Volvend is quite short, and Christian Overgaard is just wide. Please don't think I was being rude about Christian Overgaard, because he and I have similar body shapes. He is one of the great characters in Ferrari Challenge for Baron Motorsport. He receives his P3 trophy, his first podium of the season, and richly deserved. Well done, Christian Overgaard. A great drive. Another great drive from Chris Froggatt. He takes P2. He's somewhat reserved because he knows the pace was in the car for the win, but Fabien Volvend takes the win. And it's 2 out of 2 for Fabien. Octane 126 again, taking yet another. Tell you what, the old trophy cabinet in the Octane 126 headquarters in Switzerland is a big one, isn't it? Right. This could be tricky. Yeah, the Pirelli girls don't look too enthused at the moment because they know what's coming, don't they? It'll be from Overgaard, if anyone. He'll be the most chipper up there, I can tell you. And he'll be... Get out of the way, look at this. Oh, actually, I was completely wrong. However, he does get it going in the end. Race classification in the AMS. Volvend, Froggatt, Overgaard, I can't believe I said that. Thomas O'Rourke, John Sawbridge, and of course, sadly, we lost Martin Nilsson and John Dillon in that race following contact. The P3, 2, 1. First of all, of course, Christian Overgaard. Brilliant drive from him for Baron Motorsport to take P3. P2 goes the way of Chris Froggatt in the ailing number 93 car. He did so well to drive that following that damage. And P1 goes the way of the lady racer, her second win of the weekend. That is Fabien Volvend in the number 81 car. And there, against all my predictions, I said Christian Overgaard would be the quickest of the champagne. It's hopeless, absolutely hopeless. I'll have a right go when I see him in a few moments. To be fair, his aim was very good when he eventually got it going, but it took too long. So, in the Drivers' Championship, Chris Froggatt on 134 points, but being chased by Fabien Volvend on 87, John Sawbridge 81. So that's the way it looks. Races.ferrari.com. Races.ferrari.com. That's the website where you can find out all the information about the Ferrari Challenge. Next round, of course, for the Trofeo Pirelli drivers is going to be at Brno in the Czech Republic. That's where we're heading next with the Ferrari Challenge. But before you leave us tonight, we do have another race to come, a Copa Shell race. And that's going to be good under the lights. We're going to show you a great clip of everything that's been going on here at the Ferrari Challenge. And make sure you join us for the Copa Shell race next. Bye-bye for now.